Right, and we're live. We are with Tony Mack today from Advanced UK. Thank you so much, mate, for coming on and taking your time out to share a podcast with myself, mate.
It's a pleasure, Sean. Thank you for having me.
No problem at all, mate. So what I'd like to do, mate, is let's just go from the beginning. Let's get straight into it. Just introduce yourself. What got you into politics and so on and so forth, and up to where we are now.
Of course, yeah. As you said, my name's Tony Mack. I'm not a politician. I'm just a normal bloke like yourself. I got into politics. I mean, I grew up in the East End and moved out to Lat and done okay, and then moved out to Clacton. And I bought a little house by the beach in an area that's just come out again as the most deprived area in Britain, called Jaywick. Okay, as a little bolt hole, and I've always wanted a little house by the beach. Yeah. So I used to spend a bit of time there, and I used to go to Jaywick when I was a kid. Met my wife. She used to go to Jaywick a lot. I used to go to Jaywick a lot when I was a kid, and it was a lovely place, lovely, beautiful place when I was a kid, buzzing. And we used to go to Clacton a lot as well, and it was a great, it used to be a really good place. But when I kind of bought the house there and I got involved, what I like to do, Sean, is I like to give back, do a bit in the local community, because my history, I've had a bit of a checkered past. It's all out there. It's all public knowledge. But I ended up an addict and an alcoholic. I ended up like losing everything, and then having to get clean and sober and start again, like a few decades ago. And part of that is that people helped me when I was literally on the floor. Yeah. So I've always kept that ethos with me, because nobody wanted anything from me. Nobody wanted any money or anything like that. It was just like, if you're ever in a position to help people, try and give back. So I've always tried to give back. And so when I bought the house and I moved there, and I thought, right, okay, I studied and trained and became a psychotherapist 15 years ago. And when I moved there, and we've done quite well, me and my wife, which is nice. I thought, right, what can I do? How can I give back? So what I did, I formed a charity, a mental health charity in the area. Started doing bits and pieces, and a couple of us were sitting in a space once. A couple of me and my pals and that, and we were bemoaning how Jaywick is the dumping ground of tendering. And you've got some beautiful places in Clacton, like the area what people know as Clacton. The whole area is called Tendring, right? So you've got Frinton on Sea, you've got Holland on Sea, you've got Walton on the Naze, Jaywick, Clacton, Great Benton. There's lots of beautiful, beautiful places, but it seemed that Jaywick had just been neglected and run down. And I was a bit curious about this, and I was talking to a few pals of mine, and we was talking about the local councils and how they treat it, and we was talking about someone should stand up and do something about it, and we're laughing and joking, and it's like, and in the end it was like, well, nobody wants to do anything about it. It's like, it's not my problem, Gav. You know what I mean? Yeah. I leave it to there and all that. And we was just talking, and I said, you know what? I said, I'm going to do something about it, and they were laughing at me. I said, no, I am, and that's how I got into politics. Yeah, to improve the area, to try and fight the local authority and some of the stuff that was going on, just essentials really, and for the community. Yeah, and it kind of took off from there. John, to be honest, I'm like an accidental politician. It's I mean, I don't even consider myself a politician, as I said in the intro. I don't, but it just took off from there, and. I ran for a council election and a couple of bits and pieces, and I was running the charity, and I kind of sort of like took a step back, and then I was watching. I used to watch Prime Minister's Question Time quite a lot on a Wednesday afternoon, and I was sitting there one day, and see, I'm an old. I voted for Brexit. Yeah, so I joined UKIP years ago, voted for Brexit, and I voted for Brexit for the right reasons. People voted for Brexit, and we're all labelled these different names, and but I voted for Brexit because I wanted sovereign autonomy for Britain and its people. That's why most people voted for Brexit, and the left label us as gammons and flag shaggers and all this sort of rubbish that they come out with. But what they don't consider is that I want to be a free person in a country that is free and governed by ourselves. And years ago, the EU is a federalist states of Europe. It's not a good organisation. It's a terrible organisation as far as I'm concerned. So that was my only real sort of political involvement up until that time. So I was looking around and I was watching Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak go at it over the dispatch box. And I just had this sense of foreboding come over me, and I just thought, this country is in trouble. If this is the best we've got, this country is bang in trouble. And it's only got worse since then. So I thought, you know what, I'm gonna see if I can do something about it, because I believe that you have to have the courage of your convictions and you have to stand up for what you believe in. So I looked around at a few political parties, and there were a couple of candidates that their ethos tallied with mine. And I settled on Reform UK, and I joined Reform UK a couple of years ago. Got involved, and very quickly it was a much smaller party then, Sean, a much smaller party. Very quickly, getting involved in doing things, going to conferences and all that, and I was asked if I would like to stand for election or become a candidate. So I had an interview and vetting process, and I said, yeah. And they asked me to give them 3 areas that I would stand. And I said, no. I said I would only stand in the area that I lived in, because that's important to me. I have a rapport with the local community. Most of the people I get on with, I love the people, and I'm a community person. So I said, no. I said, I'd only stand in the area that I live, which is Clacton. So they said, okay, I said, and what I want you to do, I said, if I am selected, that's fine. I'll give it everything. If I'm not, tell me, and I'll get behind whoever you do select. And and by this time, I was starting to formulate Reform UK in Clacton to build it. Yeah. So, anyways, they asked me if I wanted to stand for Parliament for Clacton, and I was made the parliamentary candidate, and that's when it all took off in earnest. And we built Reform UK in Clacton. We took it from 9% to 26% in Clacton. Not just me and a small team. Yeah. And we worked, basically, most of us put our lives on hold for a year, to work at this, to build it. And we done very, very well. And we looked like we was going to get elected. And then 3.5 weeks before the election, Nigel Farage phones me up at I think it's around about 3 o'clock on Monday the 3rd of June, which is literally just before the election. And he said, I've never spoken to him before, and you've got to remember, he was a bit of an hero for me, with all the Brexit stuff and everything else. But when I joined Reform UK, and when I was given the parliamentary candidacy for Clacton, I reached out to him and I said, look, it'd do me an enormous favour, and it'd do Reform UK an enormous favour if you could put an appearance down here, and maybe, and he didn't respond to me. And but we built it anyway, and it went from strength to strength. We literally built Reform UK Clacton, and it went from strength to strength. And so he phones me 3 o'clock on June the 3rd, where now we're in full swing. We're up to 26%. We're expected to get elected and everything else. And even a week before, I was giving talks to other Essex candidates on how to run and build a campaign. I was helping design some of the other Essex candidates' campaigns. And, there's a lot of people still in Reform I have a lot of time and a lot of respect for. So he phones me and he says to me, oh, hello, Tony. He said, this is Nigel. So I said, hello, Nigel. It's nice to finally speak to you. And he said, you know why I'm phoning, don't you? So I said, no, Nigel, I don't, to be honest. He said, I'm decided to run in Clacton. So I said, oh, really? I said, okay. He said, yeah. He said, I understand you'd be okay with that. I said, I don't know what gave you that idea. I said, me and my team have put our lives on hold for a year, put enormous resources and finances.
Put all the graft in, a bloody...
Yeah. So this is what happened, right? So a few things were said, and I said to him, look, in the end, I said to him, look, Nigel, you do what you got to do. And I said, I'll do what I've got to do. And he kind of understood that I was a little bit unhappy. Yeah. And so then what? So you have to remember the context of this, Sean. At 2:00 that day, Nigel put out a press release. He was going to have an emergency press conference. Now, you also have to remember that up until that point, Nigel Farage had absolutely nothing to do with Reform UK. I never met him at any conferences. I never, he put in one appearance at a conference about 4 years ago when he'd just come back out the Tory party conference, and he said, they asked me if I'd join and all that, just all this rubbish. And then he disappeared. So he was never really involved, as far as I was concerned, in Reform UK. It was Richard Tice, Ben Habib, Howard Cox, Paul Oakland was the chairman. And, Nigel was neither here nor there. He was never, not even involved. He was only involved on paper, as the honorary chairman or the honorary president. But you have to understand the structure of Reform UK at the time, and it's still very similar now, was a limited company. And Nigel Farage held the majority share. So he was able to do this. And I believe, this is speculative to a certain extent, but there is a law that, the most obvious answer is usually the right answer. I believe he launched a bit of a coup d'etat and took over Reform UK on the 3rd of June. And because he had the majority share, he was able to do that. And I believe Richard Tice capitulated. And that was the start of the end. And so at 2 p.m, even Richard Tice's partner, Isabel Openshot, the journalist, had already put out, nobody's going to be asked to stand down, because nobody knew what this press conference was about at 2 p.m. And of course, just after 3, he's phoning me and telling me that he's going to stand. And then he goes live to the nation at 4:00. And he says to them that he's not only is he standing in Clacton, he's also taking over Reform UK. Yeah. Which was a shock to everyone. Nobody at 2:00 in the afternoon, nobody in that party knows.
Is this when he turned around and said that he doesn't want to let the people down?
Ah, that's right. Yeah. He said you got to remember, a week before that, he was willing to abandon Britain up sticks, Britain don't need me, go to move and live in America and everything else, right? So all this spiel about, I've got a duty to the country and all that, he was grafting. And that's what he does. That's how he does it. I mean, he's a master at it. He's a very intelligent man. Very intelligent man. So, so what happens afterwards is, so I'm sitting there, we're watching the press conference, and then he says something like, oh, Tony Mack knew that I would come back and all that, which is absolute rubbish, because I was speaking to people all the way through.
You lied about it.
Oh, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I was speaking to people all the way through, and I said, look, if he's going to come back, then I'm not going to put my life on hold. I mean, I had a sabbatical from work for a year, Sean, Yeah. I said, I'm not going to put my life on hold for and put everything into it, because I've got a little team who are working for me and working with me out of wanting change and everything else. And where are they going to be if he just comes back? So I built up my own local base, my own support and everything else. And in private, it was recognised that we were going to, even the former MP down here, a guy called Giles Watling, nice fella, just not a great MP. He'd sort of like, he knew that the writing was on the wall, and Reform were going to win. I was going to win. So yeah, all of this kicked off on Monday the 3rd. He takes over the party. He announces he's standing in Clacton. And then a little bit later, one of the local councillors from Clacton, a chap called Peter Harris, phones me, and he says, oh, Tony, he said, Nigel wants to speak to you. I said, oh, right, okay. He said, yeah. And I'm getting all sorts of phone calls from all people in the party, the party hierarchy, like don't do nothing stupid, Tony. Don't throw your toys out the pram, and because it was accepted in the party that I was going to be basically the first Reform UK MP in for Clacton. Yeah, it was like more or less now gone. Yeah, by this point. So so I'm talking to these people and I'm going, well, how this has happened is a little bit wrong. So they knew I was kind of a little bit upset. So this character, Peter Harris, who wasn't anything to do with reform, he wasn't a reformer, he's just a tenuring district councillor, but he's an old UKIPper, although at the time they were like a different party, and actually fielded a candidate against me when I stood for Reform UK for the local election. So, you know, it's all dodgy stuff, right? It's not honourable, it's not transparent, it's not clear, and it's not honest, in my opinion. And one thing people know about me is that I am honest. You know, I'm on the side of the people, I'm on the side of the country. So, you know, if I was to be elected, no matter who I represented, I would always represent the people in the constituency first. And people know that about me. Yeah, and I make no bones about that. Yeah, if people support me, then it's my duty to support the people, and that's what it's about. It's about the people in the country, right?
Do you feel like there's too many? Do you feel like there's too many silver spoon MPs in that parliament?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. You've got to remember, Sean. You know, the reason that Brexit failed, or Brexit has failed up until now, is because we haven't had it. Yeah. You know, out of the 600 odd MPs, we had 460 Remainers. So they was always going to put the block on it. Yeah. You know, politics in this country now, what we're looking for is a new kind of politics, Sean. Yeah. Normal people politics. People with something to offer the country. Career politicians have no sod all. They know sod all.
Can't stand them, mate.
They've never lived in the real world. Yeah. They're full of piff and vinegar, and they just oh yeah, this and all that, and they're all self-righteous pontificators. Yeah. So the biggest mandate in this country, the biggest political mandate in recent history in this country, was to leave the EU. Right. And since then, all you've had is the Houses of Parliament and all the elected MPs stand in front of it and make it block it. Yeah. So they've basically discarded the biggest electoral turnout and the biggest electoral result in recent history. They've just discarded it. Yeah. Well, that's not democracy. And first and foremost, I believe in democracy. Right. Okay. I believe in fairness. I believe in justice. Right. Not the justice we have now, but you know, I believe in justice for the country and for people. So he phones me back. So I said to this chap, this Peter Harris, look, if Nigel wants to talk to me, get him to phone me yourself, right? So he phones me back, Nigel. He said, hello, it's Nigel. Okay, I said, hello, Nigel. When I answer my phone, because you know what I do, you know, sometimes in session I record sessions, go over it after, make notes and things like that, because that's the nature of the beast what I do. So I've answered the phone on answer phone, and he starts to talk to me and my little team, and he says, I understand you're not happy. He said, Tony, I want you with me. I said, okay, yeah, all right. I said, he said, what can I do to make this situation, you know, better? He said, I understand you're unhappy, and you know. So I said, well, what do you suggest? And then he says to me, right, first of all, he said, we'll pay you back every fucking penny that you've spent, and that's the exact words that he used, right? Every effing penny. So, right, okay. And then he says, do you mind if I said, no, it's okay, you can swear. He said, that's right, we're adults here. You know, I don't swear when I'm at work, but you can swear. He said, right, that's what we'll do. We'll pay you back.
He offered to reimburse you for every
penny.
Forked out to do your campaigning.
And after the election, I put in a bill to them for $8,500. I ain't had a dinar back. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, they just ignore me.
So it's a lie.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Then he says to me, and he said, what we'll do, he said, we'll make you a councillor. He said, and I'll come out and knock on doors for you at the next election, and we'll make you a councillor. And I said, let me stop you there. I said, I'm not sure I want to be a councillor, to be honest with you. I said, I'm not, you know, that's not really my bag. He said, well, what do you want? I said, well, you know, who's running your campaign? Which was still my campaign at the time, you know, Reform UK, Clacton and all that. And he said, well, would you be interested? I said, would I be interested? I said, I'd be fun. It's my campaign, you know, would I be interested? He said, well, would you like to help running the campaign? I said, no. I said, I don't want to help running the campaign. I want to run the campaign, and I want the resources to be able to do that. Yeah. I said, you know, we've literally built this thing. Okay. He said, all right, okay. He said, right, you'll have a job at the top of that. You will have a job running the campaign. I said, well, that's a good start. He said, and afterwards, would you like to, you know, if I get elected? And I said to him, look, don't worry about getting elected. You will get elected. We'll make sure you get elected. There's no problem now. He said, would you like to be a part of the constituency office afterwards? So I said, look, let me explain something to you. I said, I'm in this politics because Clacton doesn't have a voice. You know, it's not represented and everything else. Now, me and you both know that you're just taking over a party. You're not going to be in Clacton. So again, it's got to have no representation because you're going to be here, there and everywhere and everything else. So I said, who is going to represent the ordinary people in Clacton? Who is going to represent their voice? Who's going to? And he said, and I said, I don't want to be helping out in a constituency office, Nigel. I said, I want to run the constituency office. I said, I want to be the link between you and the people, so the people have a voice, so the people were heard and everything else, right? Yeah. And he goes to me, fine. He said, you know what? He said, you've got the local intel. He said, you know, he said, you will have a job, a salaried job. At the top of that, we will pay back everything that you've spent, etc., all of this sort of stuff, right? And then I said to him, and the other thing is, I said, and I have to be honest here. I said, people have really helped me. I've got a small team that have really helped me. You know, a logistics guy, and people have gone around and campaigned with me. I said, I'd like to bring some of those people on board in running the constituency afterwards. I said, because they are committed reformers and everything else, and they've believed in me and we've helped build something. I said, and it's the least that they deserve. Absolutely, he said, teams matter. He said, you and your team, he said, well, you will have a job at the top of that. You will have a salaried job. He said, we will pay back every single penny, etc., right?
Been blowing smoke up your arse the whole time, hasn't he?
Absolutely, right? So you've got to remember, the reason for the phone call was because he wanted a statement of support from me and my little team. Yeah? He wanted a statement of support because although he'd been on TV and everything else, he hadn't actually been to Clacton. He didn't come down to Clacton until the Tuesday to make that big announcement, standing on the tables and all of that, right? So he, you know, I mean, as I said, he's a very intelligent guy. He's a very charming man and a very intelligent man, but he just happens to be a wronger as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So they wanted a statement of support from me to endorse them. Okay. So under all these circumstances and at the end of the conversation, I said, right, okay, I'm satisfied. I said, me and my team could give you a statement of support endorsing you, and I look forward to working with you. So the next day, he turns up in Clacton, and we're in a town hall. And you've got to remember, I'm the parliamentary candidate for Reform UK. It's all in paper. It's all in black and white. I have all the certificates. I'm already, you know, I have the appointment with the Electoral Commission to put in the papers and all that. So he needs me at this point. He needs me. He needs my appointment and everything else, right? Yeah. So we're walking around the town hall, and he's being shown around and everything. And it was like a royal visit. I've never seen nothing like it. It was like a royal visit. And one of my problems, Sean, is I've met lots and lots of people in my life, from royalty down to people on the street, homeless, right? And I've mixed with lots and lots of people. And I don't revere anyone. I treat everybody the same. Yeah. If you're a wrong, you turn out to be a wrong, and then I don't want nothing to do with you. But I treat everybody the same. Yeah. He is revered, and that's the problem. I don't revere anybody. I treat everybody with respect, but I don't revere anybody. To me, he's just a guy. Okay, he's a guy that I admired. Yeah. So we're walking around doing all this sort of stuff, and he's having this sort of this dignitary visit around the town hall and all that, and all the councillors are falling over him and all that. And you know, I'm talking to him walking around, and he said, you know, I've given the Electoral Commission of tendering have come to see me, and they said, we have to ask you first, would you like to transfer your appointment and give it to Farage? So I said, yeah, of course. You know, by now, we've got an agreement. There's nothing. I said, yeah, of course. I said, yeah, give them the appointment. There we go. They said, you understand we have to ask you first because you can't have it without your, you know, and this is when he registers as a candidate, right?
Yeah.
So we walked out of there and a couple of other things, and I'm watching and I'm looking around, and I'm an observer, Sean. You know, I watch people, I like people, I work with people all day, and you know, so and I'm thinking, right, okay. So I said to him, Nigel, and he said, yeah. I said, can I have a word? And he went, yeah, of course. I said to the leader of the council, I said, you've got a little ante room, me and him could go in just to have a quick chat. And he went, yeah. So I found us a room. So I walked in the room. So he walks in and he sits down. He said, everything okay, Tony? I said, yeah. I said, I just want to clarify something. I just want to make sure of something. So he said, what's that? I said, everything you said to me last night. He said, yes. I said, you remember what you said to me last night? Everything you said to me about what's going to happen, how we're going to do this, how we're going to do that. He said, yes, absolutely. I said, I just want to make sure that you understand that I'm going to hold you to that. And he stood up and he shook my hand. He said, Tony, he said, I'm a man of honor. He said, everything I said to you, I promise will happen. And I said, okay, that's fine by me. And he looked me in the eyes and shook my hand, right? So I'm thinking, right, okay, that's fine by me. Within about 2 days, I was cut out of everything, Sean. Literally cut out of everything.
Fucking hell, mate.
Right, okay. So, and that's when, you know, I knew that something was up because there's all these characters in the background who had nothing to do with reform. We were all sort of hovering around him and all that. And I know some of these characters from the council.
Did you bell him up? Did you bell him up when you found out 2 days later? Did you bell him up?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you've got to remember, he went to.
He went to.
Huh? Oh, yeah. He went. You've got to remember, from the Tuesday, he went over to VE Day. Do you remember the VE Day celebrations and all that? He went over to Normandy and all that, right?
Yeah.
And so then a couple of things that he said would happen wasn't happening with the other characters involved. And the other characters I didn't even know were involved at the time. So how can he give me a campaign or anything like that when he's already given it to someone else?
So what did he say? What did he say to you when you rang him up?
So I sent him an email first on a Tuesday night, and I said a couple of things that you said that are not really happening. And then on a Wednesday night. And then I phoned him a couple of times, couldn't get through and all that. So then he phones me on the Thursday, but by now I'm already understand. I've already tumbled what's going on. Like I'm being rode out here and everything else. Right? So he phones me on the Thursday. Now I have a few friends in the party, and one of my good friends is Ben. Yeah, Ben Habib. I've got a lot of time for the man, and
you've got a good relationship with Ben.
I've got a very good relationship with Ben.
Yeah.
I've got
he's a very polite bloke, mate.
Yeah. I've got a lot of respect for him and a lot of time for him. I've known him a few years, and I knew that he would tell me straight, right? So me and a couple of others, we got in a motor, we drove up to see where Ben was at the time, and I said, Ben, what's going on? He said, Tony, your guess is as good as mine. And we had a little chat and everything else about, and then Nigel phones while I'm there, right? He phones me while I'm there. So I said, hello, Nigel. He said,
while you're with Ben?
While I'm with Ben. He don't know I'm with Ben, but he phones me while I'm
been listening to what he was saying as well?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm sitting there, so the phone goes, right? And first of all, I'm like, I haven't got the ump now, right? I'm fuming now because I've rumbled what's going on, and I've got people from the party phoning. My best advice to you, Tony, one of the regional chairmen, my best advice to you, Tony, is to, keep your powder dry. Don't say nothing. Don't do nothing stupid. Don't throw your toys out the pram. I said, well, thanks for the advice. See you later. Put the phone down, you know what I mean? Right? So anyway, he phones me. He said, Tony, I understand what's going on. I said, yeah. I said, listen, Nigel. I said, did you get my email? I said, you gave me your contact details. You told me to call you whenever you wanted, and you was going to talk to me when you come back from France and everything else. He said, yeah. I said, did you get the email outlining the points of concern for me? And he went to me, oh, Tony. He said, I don't read those things. I have people to do that for me. And I said, see you later, mate. Put the phone down. And that was it. And I thought, you know what? You turned me over. You haven't kept to your word. You're not going to keep to your word, And then I started to understand that it was a game. It was like, I don't even believe that he is a reformer. I believe he just wanted to get into Parliament because I believe that he wants to take over the Conservative Party. That's my take on it, right?
Do you think, irrespective of everything, do you think that he's going to be the next Prime Minister of the UK?
I think he may be, but if it depends on the time. I mean, you know, I want the next Prime Minister of the UK to be Ben Habib. I think he's the only man who can unify this country and get us out of the position we're in. He's the only man with the guts and the courage to stand up and say what needs to be said. He's the only man that can actually unify and bring the country together. You know, Farage is a very divisive figure. Yeah. If anybody has got any personality, any intelligence, or any charisma, he will not have them anywhere around him. Because
this is where it gets really interesting, because my old man is a reform councillor.
Yeah, right, okay. So listen, I've got a lot of friends still in reform. Yeah. I can't be part of reform because of what I know and my experience and everything else. And, you know, and Zia Yusuf, I mean, where did Zia Yusuf come from? What does he represent? What's all that about? You know, buying into the party. The party's basically is for sale as far as I'm concerned, right? So this is how it happens. So I'm coming back from where I am on a Thursday night, and I thought, you know what? You've literally taken me for a fool. You've taken me for a mug. You know, you've got no intention of keeping any of what you said. So what I did was I put the cat amongst the pigeons and I put my papers in on that Friday. Yeah. And they got wind of it. Right. So now it's all uproar. You know what I mean? Tony Mack is a turncoat, he's a traitor and everything else. The reason I put my papers in was to stand opposing him for an election was because he turned me over. Right.
So that's what I'm saying. He lied about everything that he said he was going to say.
He lied about everything. Right. Okay. So that's why I put, and I thought to myself, you know what? This bloke, he stands up and he says, I'm from the ordinary man and I'm for the people and everything else. Well, I am the people. I am the ordinary man. If you can't be honest with me, you can't be honest with anyone. Yeah. And so that's how it come about. So I put my papers in.
He's come from money though, isn't he?
Oh, Nigel Farage?
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he's had the same upbringing as me. Let's put it that way. I mean, I don't want to speculate on anybody's background. I know he was privately educated, yes, and you know, and a few other bits and pieces. He was a broker, a metals trader in the city, and you know, so we've had very, very different lives, you know. And as I said to you, he's a very intelligent man and a very charming man. But my experience is that he's also he deals in untruths and he has no honour. And I don't mind putting that out. Listen, I invite Nigel to challenge any of this, and I know that they won't. And they know. I know that they.
Listen, do you think, Tone? Do you think that his party trick is in the House of Commons? Do you think his party trick is my best friend's Donald Trump? I'm best friends with the leader of the free world.
Yeah, I
carry a lot of clout, mate. So watch what you say to me, mate. Because
I feel a little bit dubious about that,
especially within regards to, you know, the back and forth that he has with, you know, the Labour Party. You know what I mean, from his side of the house.
Well, he likes to cultivate, in my opinion, he likes to cultivate a persona and an image. Okay, but behind that is something else. Yeah, it's a bit smoke and mirrors. You got to remember. Donald Trump was convicted, I think, on the 28th of May last year for paying hush money to a porn star or whatever. He was convicted in a civil court. And that's when it all started. Up until that point, I was the parliamentary candidate for Reform UK. We had an itinerary. The arrangement was that they were coming down on the Monday, Richard Tyson, Nigel Farage on the battle bus, and we're going around, vote Tony Mack, vote Reform UK, because Nigel he had no interest, right? So Trump gets convicted. Now, if you're Nigel Farage and you've made this thing about Trump being your best pal and everything else, and all of a sudden he gets convicted, you're going to think, oh, hold on, I might not have that gold-plated pension, you know, that job as the ambassador in America and all that, because he ain't going to get elected now, right? So what else can I do, right? Okay, bang. So it don't take much to put it together. Now, this is speculation. I believe that I'm not far wrong, right?
Yeah.
That this is so, you know, when you talk about Farage and Trump, Farage being his best pal and all that, I think it's cobblers. Yeah. I think that on once Trump was convicted, because when Farage dashes over to America and everything else, Trump doesn't have him on the table with him. He has Boris Johnson or Liz Truss or people like that. Farage sits up in the stand.
Really?
Yeah. Farage, listen, when he went over to the States, after he was elected and everything else, to meet Donald Trump and to get, he had to wait in line. He didn't see him for 3 days, and even then it was like he just hello, all right, and carried on walking. Yeah, so this misnomer this
so
famous.
He ain't really sitting at the table with Trump then?
No, of course he ain't. Of course he ain't. I'm not saying that he hasn't in the past. I'm not saying he hasn't in the past, but listen, just watch. You just have to look at it, Sean, right? So in Trump's inauguration, he has people like Liz Truss and Boris Johnson around him, right? Farage is nowhere near. Now, if Farage was his best pal, he'd be the first at the head of the table, wouldn't he? Surely. Yeah. Right. So in an auditorium where he's got like VIP guests and all that, who's sitting right up in the stands with the oi polloi up there, right? Yeah, just like a normal bod right up there. Nigel Farage, you know what I mean? So don't tell me he's got this. It's all cobblers.
Mate.
It's all rubbish. It's all smoke and mirrors, right? It's all smoke and mirrors as far as I'm concerned, right? So I was just the first person he turned over. But since then, there's been a lot of shenanigans, a lot of to and fro-in and everything else. And, he turned over Rupert Lowe. Rupert Lowe is a very decent guy, by the way. I met Rupert.
I will say he's right up my street.
Oh, he's good stuff. He's good stuff.
He's right up my street. He's my cup of tea. I do.
I've got a lot of time for Rupert, and he during building Reform UK, Clacton and all that, he was very kind to me, gave me his time. He took me listen, I'm just a normal bod, right? But he's, Rupert is also a farmer and businessman and everything else.
It's not just that; it's his parliamentary language, mate. It's how it should be. The way he speaks in Parliament, and they say, and you got the other side of the house going, it's not really.
Well, listen, the Parliament
language we'd be using in here. Do you know what I mean? When he, remember when he said about the Pakistani grooming gangs and stuff.
Yeah.
They were getting the upper bit. They were like getting a bit too.
Well, this is one of the reasons why him and Farage fell out, right? I'll tell you what happened, right? I mean, Rupert Lowe's a decent guy, but a lot of dealings with Rupert Lowe. He literally spent an hour and a half talking me through the agricultural policy when I was campaigning, because there's a lot of farmers in the Clacton area. It's a big area. So I had to be on point and know what I was talking about during the campaigning and all that. So he literally spent a lot of time with me, talking to me, and he's a decent guy. And when he went up to announce his Great Yarmouth, I went up there and met him and supported him, and we had a laugh and a joke, and he's all right. He's a posh duffer and all that, but he's one of your own. He's all right. He's a good fella.
Do you have regular communication with him, do you?
No, I don't. Not anymore. No, I don't. I have regular communication with Bennett B. Rupert Lowe. What happened was when they was elected, and Farage turned me over. I did message Tice, Rupert, and Nigel, and I said, "Look, like, what's going to happen here? I put my bill in. There's no recompense. Everything you said is not going to happen, and promises were made, promises were broken, etc., etc." And I've only spoken to Rupert. I've only had a communication with Rupert once since the election, and that was one or two things we sort of discussed about around this sort of stuff, yeah. But it wasn't going to be long before Nigel Farage fell out with people. It wasn't going to be long, yeah. And what he done to Rupert is absolutely disgraceful. And the thing,
I'd say as well as yourself, Rupert got dealt a shit hand as well.
Yeah. See, that's what I say. I was just the first, but there's been thousands, and many like grassroots members have experienced the same, and have been turned over. But I knew what the nature of the guy, right? And Rupert was a big fan of Nigel's because he'd worked with him in the European Parliament, as Ben has and everything else. And we had a conversation before the election, and Rupert said to me, he said, "I know it's not good for you, Tony." He said, "But I would personally like Nigel to come back." And he said, and if he stood in Clacton, I know that you'd lose out and all that. And I said, "Well, we'll see what happens, But Nigel wasn't coming back. Yeah, he wasn't coming back right up until 3.5 weeks before the election. He was going on. Britain didn't need him. He was ready to abandon Britain and go off to America to be Trump's this and all that. Up until obviously Trump was convicted of. And then if you're if you're a Machiavellian schematic politician, you're going to think, right, okay, he's just had some double bad press there. He's convicted of this. He ain't going to get elected as US president. So where else can I go now to further my,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Right?
Yeah, mate, yeah.
So this is how I believe it came about, because a few things happened during all of that time. He ended up using my whole itinerary. I planned it out, you know, what was going to happen, the venues and everything else, and they ended up using all of it. And they was asked frequently, where's Tony Mack? And it's like, oh, Tony Mack's decided to take a step back. Tony Mack's decided to take a step back. Tony Mack didn't decide fuck all. Excuse my French, right? Yeah. I'll try not to swear, but yeah. Tony Mack didn't decide nothing. Tony Mack was like turned over. Yeah. So the Friday comes and I put my papers in. I go, you know what? I have to be able to look at myself in the eyes. And basically, you've taken the right liberty. Yeah. So I'm gonna put my papers in. I'm gonna suffer the expense in that, and I'm gonna stand to embarrass you, you know, to get you into a place of honesty. I knew I wasn't going to win. It wasn't about winning. It was about, you know, having the story out there that the guy can't be trusted.
So when did you approach Advance UK? When did you approach Ben, or did Ben approach you?
No. I've been besieging Ben since last Christmas. Yeah, as many others have, right?
Right, yeah.
And Rupert, yeah, to set up a party, because if you know the characters involved, Ben, you know, I remember the first time I met Ben, and I said to him, between you, and it's all water under the bridge now, so it doesn't matter. But Richard Tice was leader of the party at the time. Ben Habib was deputy leader, and David Ball, Dr. Ball, was the other deputy leader. And then you had Howard Cox, you had Rupert Lowe, you had Anne Widdicombe, you had a few other people, you know, in different positions. And I remember meeting Ben, and I pulled him aside and I said, Ben, in my opinion, you should be leading this party. And he went, oh, it's very kind of you to say, Tony. He said, but, you know, because Richard Tice, you know, my opinion of Richard Tice is it's just got worse and worse and worse over the years. I remember being at an event with Richard Tice and Howard Cox, right? And I remember saying to Richard Tice and Howard was running for London Mayor. I don't know if you remember, Howard ran for London Mayor. Do you remember that? Howard Cox ran for Mayor of London.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. It wasn't too long ago that I had him on as a guest speaker.
Yeah, he's a decent fella, Howard.
Yeah,
good stuff. I've got a lot of time for Howard as well, right?
Yeah.
So I said to Howard, I said, look, you know, as part of your campaign, why don't you do this mandatory 5 years for carrying a knife? Yeah. So we put it to Richard Tice, and Richard's like, well, oh no, we can't really do it. Now I don't understand why we can't do it. Why can't you do it? You know, if you have that aim and you have that policy, a mandatory 5 years for carrying a knife, which most people would support. I mean, why would you want to carry a knife anyway? Yeah. If you carry a knife, there's a chance you're going to use it. Do you know what I mean? And you know, I mean, over the last couple of days, there's been a couple of stabbings in Islington. A young lady was stabbed. On the trains and all that, right?
Mate, this is what I wanted to talk to you about as well.
Yeah.
Because this is all that's been on my mind literally the last couple of weeks, mate. Is you know what I mean? The amount of stabbings that are going on at the minute time. Do you know what I mean?
Listen, there's no law and order in this country.
But this is sorry, mate. But this, I just got to get this out. But like, it's what really frustrates me. What really gets to me is the fact that how can you go right from having that failed asylum seeker, that illegal migrant, right? That I think he come over here in 2020 and hid in a lorry, right? He went out and killed that poor bloke, that Wayne Broadhurst fella, over in Uxbridge. Yeah. He also stabbed the 14-year-old. Yeah. Stabbed the 45-year-old as well. And you know, that man's had his life taken. Yeah. Someone that should have been deported, mate, the first time. He should
never have been in this country in the first place.
But listen, hear me out. Let me just finish quickly. Yeah. It winds me up, mate, because you get, you know, you've just had, you know, that Epping migrant, right, who got accidentally released from prison and put back out onto the streets. He was out on the run for 3 days, £76 in his pocket they gave him. Right, made it off, it swanned off into London. Then they arrested him 3 days later. What if he'd have gone out and killed or raped, do you know what I mean, another victim, and then literally it's like, you know, then you just had this mass stabbing on the train.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? With like 10 people that got stabbed up. And do you know what I mean? And it's like, this is all under the Labour government. Yeah. And today, in Parliament, I had a right old rant. Forgive my language for what you might have seen earlier, but Jesus Christ, it really, really, really angered me, mate, because it's like, how, like they say about, oh yeah, it was, you know what I mean, it was human error, whatever they want to call it, you know, that they're going to put tough measures in place. It shouldn't have happened. They shouldn't, you know, Kabatu shouldn't have been accidentally released. They're going to do, you know, an investigation or whatever, and all this and the other. During Parliament, Lammy was getting asked, right, from the opposition. Lammy was getting asked, how did he get released accidentally back out onto the streets, where we went on the run for 3 days before we got rearrested? How? And Lammy could not answer him. He wouldn't answer him. He got asked 5 times. Wouldn't answer him. And then lo and behold, which really, really, well, it weren't a shock to me, to be honest, because nothing shocks me anymore in this country. But, you know, you had, you know, he then said to Lammy, oh, well, okay, so then can you explain to me how a second, you know, a second foreign man has been released accidentally again for the second time out onto the streets, and now the police are on a manhunt for him, out looking for him. And then literally, I swear to God, Tone, you saw the colour drain out of his face, mate. He literally, mate, and then when the speaker, Lindsay Hall, when he turned up, when he adjourned PMQs and they went out for a break, whatever, he couldn't get his arse off of that bench quick enough, mate. He was flying out the door. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's the calibre of the people who are running this country, Sean. The thing is, if you noticed the first time that the question was asked a couple of days ago about the guy who was mistakenly released from prison, and he's back in, I believe he's back in, where is he? Ethiopia or Eritrea or somewhere like that. He's back wherever he originated from. He was laughing, Lammy. He's sitting there laughing, slapping his leg and laughing and all that. They're honestly, it's like a house of children. It's a game to them.
Yeah, talking about a grooming gang situation, right? Yeah. We're talking about someone who we're talking about a rape victim, right? Yeah. A sexually assaulted victim here. Yeah.
A child.
Yeah, a child, right? 14-year-old from Epping, right? Yeah. And it's like the man thinks it's hilarious, and it's like, are you all right, mate? Yeah. Sitting there, just laughing about it, mate. Yeah. On national TV.
It's outrageous. It's outrageous.
Like, do you look, mate? You got to think, mate. This is why the whole world looks at the UK as a laughing stock.
Absolutely.
Because they look at our parliament and they're thinking, "Are you having a laugh, mate?" They think shit like that's funny. You've got MPs laughing on a matter to do with a 14-year-old girl that got sexually assaulted by an illegal migrant. Are you sure?
Well, the reason that is because we've had a systematic failure since 1997. 1997 was a turning point for this country where a lot of false ads. We've never had a perfect democracy, Sean. Never had a perfect democracy, but we have had, to some extent, an accountable democracy. Now we have a free-for-all, right? Yeah. And the people in the positions of power and the people in the decision-making positions, they are not up to it. They are literally not up to it. You look at that Labour front bench. They're literally, they have not got a clue. They don't know what's going on in the real world. They have no policies. They have no, they're making it up as they go along. Yeah. And they think we're all idiots. Yeah. And then you look at the Conservatives and they're just doing the same old political point scoring. Oh, you said and I said and you said and I said. And it's all rubbish. They're like children. They're literally like children. They're like, you've heard the phrase that, the emperor fiddles while Rome burns. This is what's going on. We cannot afford to have this at the moment. We are running out of time. There is so much wrong with this country, and we are literally going down in flames. So,
Tone, how comes Keir Starmer is still sitting in power, mate, after everything that's happened, mate? It's like, I keep saying it, the man and his Labour government, it's like they've all, and Shabana Mahmood, she's the Home Secretary, she's in charge of the borders. How is it not easy to just literally close down the borders when you're in charge of it? That's your job. Yeah. And she doesn't. And all they do is they stick a couple of tweets up and go, "Oh, I'm so appalled. You know, it's so, I'm horrified at what happened." Like, you know, like they're an ex-MP, like they're a Twitter MP. They were just you know what I mean? Oh, you're just a Twitter MP, mate. Like, you do just stick a tweet up and think everyone's gonna think, "Oh yeah, no, they're all right actually," because look what they said on their tweet. You know, oh, you know, we're horrified. Like, no, mate, shut the border, love. Shut the border. Right?
Close it off. It's virtue disingenuous. It's completely disingenuous.
Tom, they're all disingenuous. Yeah. They're all disingenuous, and they're all out to line their own pockets. Why do you think they're so minted, mate? They're all rich as fuck. All of them. Right? Sunak. Look at Rishi Sunak, mate, who ain't there anymore. Him and his missus are worth about 700 million, mate. Nice. Do you really think a man that's got an amassed wealth of 700 million, right? When he was the Prime Minister, do you really think he gave a shit about the UK? Did he fuck? He didn't give about the people at all. Why do you think a man's going to give a shit, mate, about little people like me, like you know, any other working class bloke or woman, right? When he's worth about 700 mil combined with his missus. Just, do you know what I mean?
And that's why we need real people in politics.
That's what I'm saying, mate. Yeah. You need working class people in there that have come from fuck all to be in that House of Commons, mate, because they know what it's like.
Well, they don't necessarily have to be working class. You can have people from all different backgrounds, but what they need is life experience, Sean. Yeah. They need life experience, and that's the problem that we have. They're all playing a game. They're literally playing a game. It's a game of one-upmanship. It's a game of how much you can get. It's a game of political point scoring. It's a game of divide and conquer. It's a game of, identity politics. It's a game of the left versus the right. It's all rubbish. It's a smokescreen. It's absolute rubbish. We need a new politics in this country. We need a representative politics of the people. And getting back to your question before, how did I get involved with Advance UK? As I said, me and a load of other people since Christmas have been besieging like Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib to set up a party because we're politically homeless. We can't back reform because we know what Farage is. We don't even know who Sia Youssef is. Reform UK is 50% owned by Nigel Farage and Sia Youssef, right? They say they've democratised. They haven't democratised. They've democratised in name only. They haven't democratised. If you want to remove Farage or you can't. You literally can't. Yeah, it's a great dictatorship. That's what it is. Yeah. So, so we're looking for some. Where can we go? Who can we get behind? And then Ben decides to take over Integrity, and then all of a sudden a load of us join. Yeah, that's how I got into it. And when he actually launches Advance UK, me and him had a little chat, and he said, because I'd stepped back from politics. I committed political suicide by standing against Nigel Farage, but I stood against him as a point of principle. Yeah, because the bloke, in my opinion, the bloke's wrong. Yeah, he's got no honour. He don't tell. He bends the truth and everything else, and it's always, it's nothing to do with me. It's this. It was that. It was that. It takes no responsibility. Right. So that's why I put my papers in and stood against him, to hold him to account. Yeah, and I'm glad I've done it. And if I had to do it again, I would do it again. I knew I wasn't going to win, but it was like I wanted to look him in the eye and say, you turned me over, mate. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's why I did it. But of course, in doing that, I committed political suicide. No one wanted to touch me. No one wanted to know me. It was like I was out of politics. So I took a step back. Yeah. Yeah. And obviously, even when you take a step back, you still take an interest. It doesn't leave you. You know, you're still passionate about your country. You're still passionate about your children. You're still passionate about the education system. You still see it all around you. Yeah. And when Ben set up the party, that was it. I was back in, you know, and there was only one person I would have come back into politics for, and that is him. And when he said to me, would you like to do, I said, listen, if you ask me, I'll do it. And he said, would you like to? And I said, yeah, absolutely. You know, it'd be my pleasure. Yeah. So I'm back in it, and I'm back in it to win it. Sean, people laugh at me. Yeah. People laugh at me. I will take Nigel Farage on again. Yeah. He don't know what's coming. Yeah.
I know people say that it's 2029. Do you know what I mean? You still got a good few years. Do you know what I mean?
Listen, you've got to remember,
go through that political landscape, mate, and carve something out of Advanced UK.
And it's growing exponentially every day, and it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And what we're doing now, we're doing the groundwork. It's not as easy as people think to just set up a political party. And, you know, we are serious. And the thing is, what Reform haven't got that we have is we have the college, the democratically elected college of minds, and we're formulating policies, because what Ben wants to do is, when we are elected, he wants to hit the ground running on day one. The civil service will no longer run this country. Yeah, the elected people will run this country. You've got to have policies in place. You know, they talk about leaving the ECHR, European Court of Human Rights. They talk about leaving it. Do you know the extradition from the ECHR could take up to 4 or 5 years? Well, if you've got the policies in place right away, bang, you can do it. And that's what Ben wants to do. He wants to have root and branch policies in, and when we get elected, it's like, we got elected on this, the country's behind us, this is what we're going to do.
I've got a very simple mindset on just within regards to the boat crossings, mate. I've said it so many times. Like, yeah, I mean, I'm not being funny. They know they could get rid of the ECHR like that.
Of
right?
course.
That's their legal framework, right? You know, where they've got to treat, they've got to welcome in these illegal migrants with open arms, and they've got, we got to feed them, and then we've got to house them in hotels, and then HMOs, because people are getting the arsehole with it, and they're going up, and people are protesting outside these migrant hotels. And then now, you had the case where, they evacuated, from the Barbican, do you know what I mean? And then moved them somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was down at the bottom, like, do you know what I mean? And it's just like, and you get all these idiots, mate. You get all these lefties, mate. You get all these stand up to racism mob. You get do you know what I mean? The Nurinder Kaur, mate, that fucking idiot. She does my head in, mate, holding up their placards, refugees welcome here and all this lot. She's nothing but a race baiter anyway. Always is, right? Every time there's a protest, she's always there, and she's always race baiting. Always, mate. And it gets on my nerves, because, like, she's saying she's part Indian and all that lot, mate. I'm half Indian, mate, right? My old man's from India, right? My old man came over here on a boat when he was a baby with my nan from Madras, right? Like, my old man's worked hard all his whole life, mate. He's been a bus driver all his life. He's worked proper working class, mate. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? My nan was a nurse as well. My granddad was on the railway, right? And it's just like, you don't like. I showed my old man. You know what I mean? This race baited woman, this Nurinder, mate, and he's literally like going, "What's she doing, mate? What is she doing?"
Well, listen, I'm going to be polite. She's not my cup of tea, Sean.
Not my cup of tea either, mate.
I can't. I've stopped watching for obvious reasons. I've stopped watching GB News. I've stopped watching Talk TV. I can't have these characters, this polarisation that's going on. You see, what people the left don't have a leg to stand on. They know they don't have a leg to stand on. So all they can do is accuse us of being racist, bigoted, fascistic and all that, which is all rubbish. This has never been a question of black and white. It's never been a question of colour. It's a question of right and wrong. It's quite simple. Yeah, it's never been a question of colour. It's never been a question of race. The biggest question at the moment is radical Islam. Is it compatible with democracy? Of course, it ain't. And people say about, oh, you know, you're against migrants because they're this and that. No, it's nothing to do with that. You've got, was it 93% young men coming over?
You know, the word is in the title. Illegal migrants. They came into the country illegally. Therefore, they shouldn't be here. Deport them all. Gone. Tala. Off your pot, mate.
Anyone who arrives in this country, illegally must be interned and deported. You've already broken the law.
Not housed in the hotels, not put up in HMOs, not given any money. Mate, I can't believe the audacity of fucking Lammy slipping fucking Kabatu £500, mate.
I know.
Here you go, son. Off you go on your jollies. 500 quid, fill your boots, boy.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No.
It doesn't make sense to the everyday person, and they can try and make sense, and they will say people like me are simplistic or idealistic. I don't care. It's about what's right and wrong, and this is wrong. This whole country is losing out. This whole country is now crime ridden. You know, we have something called the Pink Ladies. They're standing up for women and to walk the streets. You know, the culture is changing. Everything's being watered down. Daily stabbings. It's crazy. And you know what? The government is not doing anything about it. Which then, and if you look at the demographic who are coming in illegally, it's predominantly all young males. So what's going on there? Where are the wives and the children from war-torn countries? You know, all they're doing.
Tone, thank you, Tone. This is what I'm saying. I keep saying this though. They all come right. They all come up on the boats day in, day out. They're all men. They say they come from war-torn countries. What type of man leaves their wife and his children in a war zone? Because I wouldn't. I'll be back home protecting my family, mate.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And the other thing you have to remember, and this is the argument just finished. France, as far as I'm concerned, is not a war-torn country.
No.
They're coming in from France, right? Sometimes from Belgium. That's not a war-torn country either. They have to pass through so many different peaceful countries that are not at war to get here. They're coming here. You're quite right. The reason they are coming here, I'll tell you why they're coming here. Because in France, the support for the illegal migrant is around about, I think, the last count I checked, which was a year ago or something, was around about €5,000. The average support for the illegal migrant in Britain is something like £22,000. That's why they're coming here. Yeah, it's quite simple. It is quite simple, and we are allowing it. Now, not only do they come here, but when they come here, they're completely undocumented. We do not know nothing about them. No. We don't know nothing about them. Yeah, we don't know whether they're murderers. We don't know whether they're rapists. We don't know whether they're fraudsters. We don't know nothing about them.
And this is what annoys me, because you get people out there, you get all the lefties, mate, go, well, what I bet you wouldn't say it if it was a white person. Yes, right. I would, actually. I would. Of course I would. But I'm not being funny. At least with offenders that are British, we know where they live. We can find them.
Yeah, we know where they live. We know where they live. We know who they are.
Finding their IDs over the boats, mate. So how the fuck do you expect us to know where they've come from?
Yeah. Well, that's the point. Mate. That's the point. And, you know, it just defies any kind of logic that anyone can have. And the last thing the left can throw at people like us who are standing up for our country, the last thing they can throw is racist. And they think that shuts down the debate. And then they throw Islamophobic, that made up word Islamophobic, right? Okay. Now, I've been labelled all of these things, and it doesn't bother me, Sean, because I know I'm right, okay? And I can argue my point. Now, you've got to remember, Islam, and what's happening is we're in, you know, a lot of the people who are coming over illegally are from certain different areas. And that's not moderate Islam, that is fundamental Islam. That is like, you know, radical Islam, right? Yes. Sharia law and everything else, right? So then they say, oh, you can't criticise Islam. Do you know they tried to push a law through Parliament recently, making Islamophobia, you know, a criminal offence and everything else, right? Well, Islamophobia doesn't exist at all because it's a made-up word. But you have to remember also that Islam is not a race. Islam is not a race, yeah? But people from all different backgrounds. Yeah, it's an ideology, right? It's an ideology. It's a belief system. It's an indoctrination. Yeah, and it's fundamentally at its core opposed to democracy. So, what do you prefer? I prefer democracy. I
So
prefer
do I.
freedom, right?
So do
I
I.
prefer equal rights. I prefer safety on the streets for my women, for my wife, for my children.
I prefer a civil society.
Right, bang. So right, I'm going to go all hard line on you now, right? Okay. My view is, if you wish to live in a civil society and you behave uncivilly, then you lose your right to live in a civil society. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that.
Simple, yeah. 100%.
I don't care who says what. That's it. If we want to live in a civil society, if we want a rule of law, a rule of equality, I mean, we have no equality in this country. You know, I know it's been said many times in many ways, but, you know, there's a certain demographic in this country, i.e. people like me and you, who are treated unequally. Yeah, we are actively discriminated against. How can that be right? How can that be right? It's disgraceful. So we don't live in an equal society. And then you have, I mean, Tommy Robinson, whether you like him or loathe him, Tommy Robinson was a political target. Yeah. He was literally a victim of
because he stood up,
of course,
and was speaking up against radical Islam for the last decade.
Of course. And this man, put his life on the line. He put himself out there. He's been. I mean, can you imagine being banged up in solitary? As far as I'm concerned, the man deserves a medal without a shadow of a doubt. The man deserves a medal. And people go, oh yeah, but he's this and he's that and all this rubbish, you know. And you listen to any reformers and Farage, you know, I always chuckle to myself when someone's a reformer but they support Tommy Robinson. I was like, well, how can you support both? Because Farage and Reform, they hate Tommy Robinson. They detest him.
It's a bit of a low blow, to be honest with you, because when I went to the first United Kingdom rally in Trafalgar, Tommy was telling everyone in the audience to rally behind Nigel and Reform. Yeah,
that was in February, wasn't it?
And then he just gets thrown under the bus, and Nigel makes all these remarks about him.
And I always remember Richard Sy saying, we want nothing to do with that lot. Basically, anybody who has anything or supports any views of Tommy Robinson, Reform want nothing to do with them. But of course, you know, people are finding out now. You know, and they're making up their own. This is why Advance has grown so fast and why it's grown so big and why it will grow and it will outshine Reform, because people, you know, I have reformers every day because people know that I'm the real reformer in Clacton, the original reformer, before Farage. And Farage is off doing his stuff and everything else, and he's not. People are getting the hump. He's not holding surgeries. He's not doing this. People are like, where is he? Where is he? And you know, and Ben, despite all their efforts, Ben is not on mainstream media at all anymore, right? And yet the party is still growing. Yeah, because people know that Ben tells the truth. We rally behind Ben.
I mean, I'm not being funny. I saw the man down at the UTK. You know, the recent one just gone.
Yeah,
I saw the man on the stage, mate, saying Keir Starmer's a wanker, mate. And I was like, mate,
I know.
Cup of tea.
Well, listen, I know. I mean, you know, I swore in this podcast, right? That's not normally what I do, but every now and then it slips out. And what that shows you is that, you know what, he ain't standing on ceremony for no one. He's got the courage of his convictions. He will stand up and say it how it is, and he will explain it and he will back it up. You've got to respect a man like that, you know.
100%.
You know, and I trust the man. There was only one way I would ever come back into politics, and as I said, if he asked me, and he did, and I will, I will stand behind that man and that man's cause, wherever it goes, wherever it leads us, And many, many, many thousands of people, tens of thousands of people, are now, they talk about, Jeremy Corbyn and Sultana starting up the U Party and all that. You know, what's it got? 50,000 members? I thought Jeremy Corbyn was supposed to be this leftist hero and all that. We will surpass them. And we will surpass Reform, because I made a prediction just after the election, from what I knew, my opinion was that Nigel was not a reformer. I had to school him in some of the policies on the day he announced that. You know what I mean? He's not a reformer. He is an opportunist, okay? And there's nothing necessarily wrong with being an opportunist, but you need to be honest. And he's taking the country for a ride. Do you remember during that campaign, he kept starting his speeches with one phrase, right? He kept doing it. He kept repeating it over and over and over again. Now, if you know anything about psychology, what this was permission. Yeah, it was psychological permission. And he would use this phrase all the time. Make no mistake, Labour are going to win and they are going to win big. Now, if you're campaigning for a party, why would you be bigging up another party? What's all that about? Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. But he would say it all the time at every campaign.
Planting the seed.
No mistake, planting the seed. There you go. And I believe it plays right into his hands, because if Labour get in and complete disaster, then all of a sudden everybody's going to turn to reform. Nigel's the new messiah and everything else. But of course, unfortunately, I believe that Nigel will be the architect of his own downfall, because he believes his own hype. He believes that he's untouchable, and people are seeing through him. And you know, the business with the usage, the business with the non-democratisation of the party, the business with the U-turn on the rape gang inquiry. Oh no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. Then Rupert Lowe goes and starts, and all of a sudden it comes out, and he's making a bit of political capital out of it again. Oh no, we are going to do it now. Well, hold up, make up your mind. Yeah. You know, oh yeah, transsexuals will be allowed in certain women's prisons. All this rubbish, and it just you know, he's not bothered in the least by demographic change. Demographic change is whole areas, whole communities just becoming something else. Not bothered in the least, he says. Not bothered in the least. It's a political impossibility to deport, you know, millions of people. You can't do that. It's a political. Well, why not? Tell me why not. Yeah, I don't care if it's a political impossibility or not. Yeah, we want a democratic, safe, free Britain. Yeah, that's what we want.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
And that's
right,
mate. That's why,
mate. I'm gonna have to start wrapping it up now.
Yeah, no problem.
But listen, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on, Tony. And
thank you for having me on,
mate. It's been an absolute pleasure, mate. You're a diamond. All right.
God bless.
I'll catch you soon. Be lucky, mate.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you, mate.